Okay, welcome back to Talkin Knicks. I'm Tom Piccolo, recording this on Sunday evening, shortly after the Knicks lost on the road to the Phoenix Suns, 95 to 116. We're going to talk about that game. We'll talk about the other games too. The Knicks actually went 2-2, just as we predicted as a pod on the last podcast. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Quentin Grimes and RJ Barrett and all the stuff. So let's do it. Let's talk Knicks. All right, before we get to the Knicks talk, I'm joined by two co-hosts. Kenney Poon, who's joined me every week of the season so far. Kenney, I'll start with you. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I had a nice little weekend. It was my brother Greg's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Greg. He couldn't join us today, largely because it was his birthday yesterday. We went into the city, hung out with him. Friend of the pod slash co-host Jake was there. First time I've seen him in a while, so that was cool. But we had a nice little Saturday. Went to get some dim sum in Chinatown, and then got some. Went to see Into the Woods on Broadway, off Broadway. I don't know where Broadway ends and off Broadway begins, but
You
it's a nice
saw it.
little saw it. And let me just. I don't know if this is for what else is on, or if I should just tell you now. Like, it was an interesting show because like the first half of it's like a happy fairy tale, and then you're like, oh, it's over, and it's like, no, it's intermission, and then there's the second half, and the second half is much darker than the first half. So if you're going to see it, just be aware that if you leave after the first half, you'll probably be happier than if you wait to the end of the play.
There's a tone
And
shift.
that delightful laugh on the other line, that is none other than Big Baby David, BBD. It's been a while since you've been on Talking Knicks.
Yeah, that it has been a while. It has been a while. It's good
I
to be
don't blame
back.
you.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of they've been terrible. Baseball kept happening. I mean, this week was kind of the first one. I was like, oh, I watched a good amount of each game. I straight up didn't watch the Warriors game. Let's get ahead of that. Because I spent my weekend at my grandma's funeral yesterday. So both we're all partying
A
and
little celebration of life.
yeah, yeah. So came back from that, had a mostly relaxed day till those goddamn Knicks and the Giants disappointed too. Bad New York sports day. Jets had a devastator. I don't care about them personally, but that was a bad one.
Not a great
Cowboys are
Sunday
doing it. Ugh.
for the New York sports, but we'll start with the good here. So we started the week with a win over Utah in Utah, 118-111. This was a Utah team that like recently kind of hit a little skid, but I mean, their record was very good going into this. So it's not like the Knicks were favored by any means. We were kind of coming off a skid of our own. So I'd say like the big thing that stood out to me in this one was quickly kind of spurred an 11-2 run to start the fourth. And that built a lead. And then Jalen Brunson really brought us home. Kenney, as our resident Jalen Brunson expert, anything you wanted to talk about in this one from the Jazz game? I mean, he was a stud.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two things that you touched on were the big things. I think Emmanuel Quickly's third quarter was exceptionally good. I think he hit, I believe, two straight threes. I know he hit two threes in the quarter. I believe it was potentially on back-to-back possessions. But for a guy who hasn't been shooting well, that was big. And then in the fourth quarter, to close it out, Jalen Brunson just doing what Jalen Brunson has been doing all season, and just like making big buckets. And I say it to you guys, but like every time I see him make a shot, like in that mid-range area, like it always seems like a highlight. Like his footwork is impeccable, and he's just very, yeah, crafty is overused for lefties, but he's just so crafty around the hoop, and he just looks so good playing basketball that I am tempted to clip every single one of his highlights because he's just been phenomenal. So that, like you said, those are the two high points for me on that game as well.
Yeah, Brunson, just every shot he makes looks like cool, and that's been very refreshing. And he's been, for the most part, a very stabilizing presence. That's been welcome. What we've needed for years.
Yeah, and I'll jumping onto that, like that's something the Knicks haven't had in years, like because RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, like say what you will about them, they don't look. It's not fun to watch them barrel into people and just like use strength to score buckets. Like Jalen Brunson gets his buckets by being like clever and having a tight dribble and making moves and things like that. So like it's fun to watch and it's something that the Knicks haven't had in a while.
He's super skilled. No, totally. The hand-eye coordination, the footwork, like it's pretty wild. He had some shots even today against Phoenix that really blew my mind. But that was a really nice win against Utah. And I was saying before we started recording, like if we'd flipped these 4 games, like if we'd started with 2 losses and finished with 2 wins, I think the tenor of this podcast would be very different. We'd be very positive. And so if you hear any negativity coming through, it's because we're coming off 2 straight losses. But we can't forget, like that was a very nice win against Utah. And we followed it up with a really nice win in Denver. Granted, they were without Nikola Jokic. They were without Aaron Gordon, who I think would have been their best option to guard Julius Randle. But look, Knicks stepped up. Julius Randle played some hero ball in that fourth. And I think that the highlight that everyone remembers is Julius Randle going to the floor, diving on a ball and getting into Jalen Brunson for a dunk in that fourth quarter in crunch time. The Knicks won this one 106-103. BBD, did you catch this one?
I did. Yes, that was kind of the signature moment of the game. And obviously the Nuggets were missing a bunch of their high-end talent, including the MVP. So that's just the way it goes sometimes. And credit to the Knicks for you play the games you've got, and they actually played well as a whole in this one and came through with a win against a team that is better than them, which has been kind of rare this year.
Yeah, and then it's not like the Jet or the Nuggets didn't have talent because Jamal Murray he's coming off of injury. Like he looked pretty good at least in the beginning. I think he slowed down the second part of that game. And Michael Porter Jr. is a good player as well. So like it's not like they were devoid of talent. And like this game counts the same as if they had those players. So you have to win the games that you have. So you can't fault the Knicks for beating a team that doesn't have their best player.
No, it's been the case several times this season, and we'll definitely, bank all those wins that we can. I think that, a couple other highlights from this one. I guess maybe a low light. I feel like RJ Barrett was kind of the only guy who did not play well in this one. And that was sort of a theme throughout the week. I know we'll have a standalone conversation about RJ, but I think that, it's only right to highlight that he went 4 of 18 in this one, including 0 of 9 from 3. And he really looked like he was just trying to shoot himself out of it. There was kind of that Dion Waiters mentality where when he said, I think I'd rather go 0 of 20 than like 0 of 9, because 0 of 9 meant I lost my confidence, something to that effect. And RJ really was trying. You can't fault him for a lack of aggression, but it would have been nicer if he were less aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get more into RJ a little bit later.
Yeah, I was going to say the other things that stick out about these, namely RJ. I think he gets a bigger conversation after we get through these games.
Yeah, and again, Brunson was solid in this one, and Cam Reddish. I know he didn't put up huge numbers, but he was solid. He was solid through those first 2 wins, and then in this next game against the Golden State Warriors, which the final score I think was just a 10-point. It was 111-101. The Warriors won, and it felt like the disparity should have been much greater than that. But the Knicks kind of hung around with a lot of free throw shooting, and Cam Reddish unfortunately got injured in this one. He tweaked his groin, and so that's going to lead to some Quentin Grimes talk down the road. But I don't know. I know you said you didn't really watch this from BBD. This was one where Jalen Brunson had a very uncharacteristic game for him. He was 2 of 13 from the field. RJ continued to struggle. He was just 1 of 6 from behind the arc, 6 of 19 overall. This game was not fun to watch. Just my 2 cents. It was like the worst games you've ever seen quickly and Toppin play together. They finished 0 of 10 from the field combined, and they quickly turned the ball over 3 times. Like he was really, really bad decision making. And I don't know if it was whether they were tired. There were rumors that people were sick. I know Mike Breen kept saying that RJ was sick, and it sounded like some other guys were too. But the guys they played like it too.
Yeah, and you started it off with Brunson. it's by far his worst game. Just by box score, it's a stark difference from literally every other game he's played this year. He has like 1-3 of 10 game, but that doesn't really compare. And then he immediately bounces back in at the time of recording today's game. So not worried about that at all. And yeah, I mean, obviously Golden State hasn't gotten off to the start to the year they wanted, but defending champs, I wasn't expecting a win coming in, but yeah.
Yeah, Kenny, any takeaways from that one, or is it just dump it, trash it? This one's garbage.
I mean, the thing is, the start of this game, the first quarter was rough. Like Klay Thompson, who has not been shooting at all, like made a bunch of shots. Steph Curry, who has been shooting well, made a bunch of shots. And like it's weird because I look down through the box score and I try to remember what happened because my memory at this point is enough for one game. But it's like the fact that the Knicks only lost by 11 and like it looks like no one had a good game. Like I don't know if I should be encouraged by that, but like I feel like there is something there, and maybe it's just kind of the way that the NBA is at this point that like people make runs, and sometimes the runs in the first quarter, sometimes the runs in the third quarter, but like teams on both ends are making runs.
Yeah, the big one, like what helped the Knicks stay in this one, like I said, was the free throw shooting. They went 32 for 34, 94% from the line on 34 attempts. That's really good for a Knicks team that really doesn't do that well from the free throw line. Comparatively, the Warriors shot 11 of 20 from the free throw line. So there was a huge disparity there. And that definitely kept them in it. I think Brunson did a really good job of getting defenders up in the air. I think he liked going at Jordan Poole a lot. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much more to say on that one. We can get to the
let me just throw in one thing. Like I think it is understandable that the Knicks started out slow in this game. They were coming off one of the harder back-to-backs in the NBA and going to Utah, and then the following night going to Denver and playing at altitude with a limited roster and with some illness going around the team. So to come out with those two wins, like a letdown in the first quarter of this game isn't, I don't think it's anything that is the worst thing to happen. Like I think it's a little bit understandable, but at the same time, you'd like to see them kind of come off those two wins stronger.
Yeah, in the context of what this season has been, sure you don't like it, but it's not one that I lose sleep over compared to some other games this year.
All right, yeah, I think that covers it for the Warriors game, and then we can talk about today's game a little bit. Knicks lost to the Suns. I mean, look, I think they were just kind of outclassed in general. They gave up a ton of open threes. It was mostly in the second half. I mean, I know even in the fourth quarter, I think that the Knicks had tied it, or third quarter, the Knicks had tied it. I think it was 60-60. But then to end the third and throughout the fourth, it was just kind of a rout. I don't know. I'm curious. BBD, you watch this one? What did you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, they hang on for that first half, and that was mostly good. Eventually, outclass is a good way to put it. Devin Booker finds himself in a little bit of a run in the second half there, and kind of pulls them ahead for good. Sort of just the way it goes. He's the best player on the floor, and in basketball, it's sort of the not so secret thing. His best player controls a lot of what happens.
Yeah, and I feel like we have to remind the viewers that Derrick Rose got injured in this game,
Yes.
and I know we've had a lot of conversations about him not playing a ton of minutes. But the game was very close and possibly tied when Jalen Brunson went out after just a tremendous run. I think he scored 9 straight points, and then came out for Deuce McBride, who was replacing Derrick Rose as the backup point guard. And from there, Phoenix just went off. And so I think there is something to the fact that the Knicks didn't have their normal backup point guard there because typically their bench has been outperforming other benches, whereas tonight, once Deuce McBride came in and Jalen Brunson left the floor, the Knicks just got blown out from there on. And when he came back in the fourth quarter, the game was kind of out of hand at that point. So something to think about. Just because I know we've talked about that Rose hasn't been playing great in some of these games, and his role has diminished, but he still, runs that second unit, and that's something the Knicks need.
Yeah, the like silver lining to that is that like Deuce personally looked all right, so maybe they will start mixing him into that group more, so it isn't just a straight up annihilating the chemistry that group has together. I think a lot of people would like to see a little more Deuce anyway, but I don't know. It seems like with Rose out or at least banged up moving forward, they should be able to mix him in and try to make that not an immediate drop off situation.
Yeah, we'll see how long Rose is out for. And we should note that this was the first game that Cam Reddish sat with the groin injury. He said he sustained. He said likely guarding Steph Curry is what triggered it. But that allowed for Quentin Grimes to start and play in this one, and he was really good. I mean, I know just looking at the numbers, he was 4 of 10 from the field, just 1 of 5 from 3. But he had a career high 8 assists to just 1 turnover. His playmaking looked very strong. He was attacking closeouts. He was a very good defender. He was easily the best two-way player, particularly to start the game that the Knicks had. And I was really impressed considering he hadn't played much in the games previous. I know we've kind of had some differing opinions on necessarily why that might be. I do think it's a little strange that it took an injury to Cam Reddish for him to actually see real time on the floor, and the fact that he looked healthy. He had some real pop. Like I said, he was attacking closeouts. He looked quick. So this didn't look like a guy who was just getting over an injury. So I guess the reason why Quentin Grimes played last year was because of COVID and various injuries. And it looks like he's going to be, see some time again because of that. But it's just, we know this is a guy who can impact the game in a positive way. And especially in previous games when we saw RJ Barrett struggling with illness and just really not producing, being actively harmful to the team. It's just a little strange to me that Quentin Grimes wasn't in the rotation at that time, kind of soaking up some of those terrible RJ minutes.
I want to just let the viewers know of our back channel discussions on our own private group chat, because I am of the opinion that the Knicks have been bringing Quentin Grimes along slowly because of his injury. We saw a few games where he played 5 minutes, and then didn't play for a few games. He had a game where he played 15 minutes and then didn't play the following few games. And to me, that says that they were testing out the foot, seeing if there was any issues, and then, resting him as much as they possibly could before getting him back onto the court. I know Wally said that of plantar fasciitis, that's kind of the way that you have to handle it is, you just have to rest. You can't overexert yourself on the foot. Otherwise you can, the injury will linger. So that's my opinion, but that is not the opinion of everyone on this pod. Quite specifically, Tom and Greg do not necessarily agree with that assessment.
I think that's a very generous reading of it on your part, and that's, speaks to your generosity, I think. But I also believe that they've said before that he does not have plantar fasciitis. And so I think Wally might have been mistaken on that, because even recently on the broadcast, they've said it was not plantar fasciitis. I'm looking at Stefan Bondi and a tweet from November 10th. Practiced fully today. He's undergone 2 MRIs. Pain flared up in the game versus Philly. It says it's not plantar fasciitis and surgery is not needed. So I don't know that Wally was right on with that one, but look.
But what the point that Bondi also mentioned there is that the pain flared back up. So I think that still speaks to they're giving him some minutes, letting him test it out, and then taking their time. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I don't know that we're going to come to consensus because we don't have, insider information on anything.
But I guess my point would be just if there were still this lingering pain by now, we're talking about November 4th. It's now November 20th. If the pain were still an issue, if bringing him back too soon were still an issue, you wouldn't have played him 30 something minutes in this game. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have thrown caution to the wind just because Cam Reddish was out. You would find ways around that if his health were actually in question.
Again, I don't want to continue to litigate this point just because I what I was saying is I think that they were being overly conservative because this is the guy that they just held out of a trade for Donovan Mitchell. So like I think it's quite possible that he is fine, but they're just giving him extra time to rest, and then bringing him along slowly. And like once the injury to Cam Reddish happened, then their hand was kind of forced. And I know we've also disagreed on the point of whether or not Fournier could have played, but again, I don't want to dive too much into that point because I don't think it's what the people want to be listening to.
It's not fully worth it. And yeah, overall the point is I believe Grimes came into today with 42 minutes played all season, and he approaches doubling that in one day. He gets 32 minutes tonight, and it looked really good in his first unleashing. Obviously the shooting numbers not quite there, but he had a playmaking ability today that I never saw last year. And not that there was never a chance that it would come out, but figure his ceiling is a very good 3-and-D guy. And he breaks out 8 assists, 1 turnover game in his first real action. That was fun to see.
Yeah,
and he plays good.
And he was like really creating looks for his teammates, right? Like I've said before that
they were real assists.
Yeah, exactly. Like the NBA can be very generous with their stat keeping and giving assists to guys who don't necessarily, actually contribute to the offensive player making the shot. But Quentin Grimes was really finding guys and creating open looks for his teammates, drawing 2 defenders, kicking it out, making quick decisions. Like he looked awesome. So, yeah, some of the threes he takes sometimes are extremely contested. I would love to see some more open looks for him. He is such a high release that it's hard for defenders to actually affect his shot, but guys are in his airspace. So I would, I tweeted out that the Knicks kind of ran the same play on offense over and over again today. They ran the Spain pick and roll. There was one point to start the first quarter. They just ran it 3 consecutive times, and the Phoenix Suns saw it coming a mile away every time. Like by the time they got to the third time, the Suns were like, "What do you do? We know we just switched this." Like, so I tweeted about it, but it's very strange that like we have other plays. We can get open looks. All of these resulted in like contested long 2s. So that was a little frustrating for me from a schematic standpoint. We've seen the Knicks run plays that work. So their reliance on the Spain pick and roll today was very strange. I know that's a little in the weeds, but I thought it was notable because I'd like to see guys like Quentin Grimes get more open looks. One guy who did get some open looks and still wasn't hitting is RJ Barrett. So I think we need to have the RJ discussion. We got to talk about it. Guys, what's going on here?
It's bad. There's been a lot of talk about he's been sick, and I have no reason to not to believe that's the case. When he was sitting on the bench in Denver, been playing like it. When he was sitting on the bench in Denver, he was wearing a mask. So I have to believe like he is actually sick, and I don't think that's helping him. I think he looked a little more like himself this game, while still not shooting well. But the last 2 games in particular, like he couldn't get up, he couldn't do anything. And then even today, now that I'm thinking about it, like he got blocked several times in, very aggressive fashion, which, it happens on occasion, but like it happened 3 or 4 times today. So maybe still today he wasn't even at his best. So like, I don't know how much I want to blame illness because he wasn't playing particularly well before that, but, certainly being sick has not helped his case.
BBD, are you worried?
Hard not to be. I mean, I hate to play around too much with some of this stuff, but this is his 4th season now. He's not he improved a lot year to year in the previous year, so I don't want to discredit that, but he certainly hasn't improved this year, and now the defense, which you and I have talked about a lot offline, but the defense has been lacking. He really only has, looking at his game log, like by box score, 2 good games, and one of them is against Detroit, which doesn't really count. Sorry, Detroit, but it's been bad, and at least offensively certainly gets worse. Today I was trying to watch specifically for him, and at least anecdotally the defense was not as bad, but again, that's just when I was watching for it, he was okay. It's worrisome, and it's right after you give the guy the contract. I'm not trying to say RJ's not motivated anymore. That would be very rude. But that is a thing in the NBA. That guys get a contract, and yeah, it just starts falling apart quick.
Yeah, and he's been like getting to the line a little bit and making his free throws. There are all these times he gets a trip to the line, and Wally or someone will say like, maybe this will get him going, and it just hasn't.
Yeah.
I would like,
The
I
last
like
two
it.
games of free throws are better,
Yeah,
so that's good.
I like when RJ is really looking to create for his teammates. Like if he doesn't have it going himself, then he starts finding open looks for his teammates. I believe in that Warriors game, he finished with 5 assists, which is tied for a season high for him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he had 5 assists, still 3 turnovers, and some of those turnovers were ghastly, like pick six type, like going the other way, easy bucket. But his 5 assists, I looked at all 5 of them, they were all legit. They were all legit assists. And so if he could be that guy and like mitigate the bad decisions, the turnovers, I don't care if he's like ever overly efficient. I'd like to see him hit like 35% from 3. I think that's about his career average. I don't care if he's a 20 point per game guy. It's just like he has to be not actively harmful to the team, and that's what he's been of late, and honestly for the better part of the season. Other than just like making his open threes, Kenney, what do you think he needs to do better? Like, how can he get out of this?
It's tough because I put the last 3 games in kind of a different camp than the prior games. Like before that, the big conversation was like he just wasn't finishing on the rim, and still isn't. But now the 3-point shooting has also become a major concern just because he shot so poorly. But I think in order for him to take that next step offensively, like bigger picture, he has to start. I think that the threes are gonna come along. Just a reminder that I think 2 years ago, I don't know if it was to start the season or shortly after that, he had a 0 for 21 or 0 for 22 stretch. So like, I think eventually he's going to come around on that, but like, I need to see him be able to finish at the rim with some regularity. And like you said, Tom, the fact that he's getting to the free throw line now, like, is a little more. It's better because if he continues to not finish around the rim, but like gets free throws, like it all works the same for me. And those shots don't count as shots when you get fouled and miss the shot. So like, continue doing that, but maybe make a few as you're doing it, and I'll be a happy guy.
And he also just has to be smarter about when he attacks the rim. Like he missed some today against Phoenix, where it was like, I mean, he'd beaten his man, got a great look at the rim, and just like flung it too hard off the backboard. And it's like, all right, man, like something. I saw someone tweet he had the yips. Like that's kind of almost taboo to say something like that. But there's something mental going on there where like these are shots he's made his entire career, and all of a sudden he can't seem to convert. But there are also shots he takes that just get swatted, that like you said, get blocked, get defended by multiple defenders and never have a chance. And if he could just turn those into kickouts, into looks for his teammates, that's going to help his efficiency a great deal. And then the other thing, I know, like we've tried to like cut out the mid-range game from the modern NBA, but sometimes if there are rim protectors back there, if he just pulled up from 15 feet, like that would be such a wide open 15-footer pull up is such a better look than the shots he's been taking. I know that has not been his game on the season. He's only taken 4 long twos. So outside the paint, 2-pointers. He's 1 of 4. It's clearly not his game, but like if he could just work on that in the offseason, just have some mid-range weapon so that defenders can't just load up on the rim and wait for him to barrel into them, because right now he has no other options.
It'd be great for him to build that up as a backup plan. Yeah, give him more options. And like you said, it's just what you're looking for is a second like plan of attack when like your threes aren't falling. We want you to be able to do other stuff. And lately it's at least been he's getting to the line more and hitting those free throws. So that's cool. I think for few years now, we've wanted those to lead to more kickouts for open threes for teammates, and year over year, the assist number just hasn't changed. It's literally averaging 3 assists per game each of the last 3 years. So it's that would be a very big next step of the evolution for him that would go a very, very long way. Is to work on just kickouts.
Yeah. I don't, and just going off of that, I don't want to keep piling on RJ, but like that point brings up the whole point that like when he came into the league, I think there was some expectation that he'd have a little playmaking ability. And we see once in a while like a phenomenal pass where it's just like, where did that come from? And then like the rest of the game, it looks like he's predetermined whether he is passing or shooting before the play even happened. And so like just a little more like figuring out what he does on those situations and reacting to the play rather than making that predetermined. Because like I don't remember what it was, but like he had a very nice wraparound pass, like defended by 2 guys under the basket. No idea how he saw to Jericho Sims. That I think Sims ended up missing the basket or got fouled a couple games ago. But like it's like, where did that come from? Because I see that like once every 4 or 5 games. And it's just like, what if you just did that a little more? That would take some of the pressure off of you when you try to get to the basket, and it also create open looks for your teammates and help everyone. But haven't seen that consistently yet.
Yeah, I feel like we get one of those plays a week, give or take, and maybe let's get that up to like one of those plays a game.
Be nice.
That'd be really cool. Maybe that's asking a lot. Every other game, let's start there.
I know he had a couple passes in that second Detroit game, so we're going back over a week now, but he threw one that was like this right-handed live dribble bullet to Obi Toppin in the corner, and I think Obi hit it off the side of the backboard, but it was like the most spectacular pass I've seen RJ throw. It was like before the defense expected it. It was a pass you would not predetermine. It was something that you would throw based on reading the defense. And it's like, dude, if you've got that in your bag, like where has that been? Like let's see more of that. And Kenney, I remember that pass you're talking about to Sims. Same deal. Like really forcing the defense to react to you and then taking advantage of it is something he needs to work on. And I think he can, but you know, we're in year 4. His assists per game numbers, his assist percentage numbers are about the same. They've stagnated throughout his entire career. So I don't know. It's something we're obviously going to be watching very closely. We're all rooting hard for RJ. Speaking for myself, I'm a big RJ fan, but this has been a really trying time for us RJ fans because he looks bad. His energy is low, and he looks like he's not having any fun out there either. He's overthinking stuff. So, here's hoping that he can turn it around soon because the Knicks need him. The Knicks really need him.
Love him.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I feel like we have been exceedingly negative because I still think that RJ is going to be a good player, and I think that all of this stuff is going to turn around. But just like right now, he doesn't look good.
Something just needs to be fixed. I don't know what exactly that'll be, but he needs to get something tweaked here or there, and I think he can get the season back on track. But just and right now it's bad.
Yeah, because again, like that 0 for 21 or over 22 whenever it was, like I think he ended that season shooting 40% from 3. So like it became a nice footnote. It's like, oh, see how bad he was and see how much he improved through the season, that he ended up shooting 40% on the season. Like that's crazy. And like, so I think, I think he's going to get better as the season goes on, just because he's off to a cold start, and being sick also isn't helping him. So I think we're going to see him get better. It's just right now it's not fun to watch. It's not what the people should be watching.
All right. I mean, any other storyline like when Cam Reddish gets back? I think he's been one of the most pleasant surprises of the season. Like he's someone that I had very little faith in coming into this year. Having watched him in Atlanta and watching him last season for the Knicks, I was very low on him. Like I'll admit I was wrong on this guy. Like he's been really active defensively. His block and steal percentages are both really high. And he makes stuff happen. You know what I mean? He adds a little bit of athleticism, a little bit of burst that the Knicks really don't have. Like to your point, Kenney, like RJ and Randall are kind of more plodding and sort of brute forces. Cam Reddish is kind of just graceful and like long and explosive and fun. Like definitely different than Jalen Brunson, who's just like skilled. Whereas Cam Reddish has this next level of athleticism, not like the level of Jericho Sims, who's like a whole different beast, but Cam Reddish has this combination of skill and athleticism that is uncommon with this squad.
Yeah, I will agree on kind of everything you just said. I also did not have high hopes for Cam Reddish coming into the season, based mostly off of what we saw towards the end of last season. But I don't think I was very high on him even coming out of the draft. But he has, he has all of these tools that we've talked about that he should be a good player. And we talked about this even when we weren't high on him. He has the length. He should be like an excellent defender. He has some shooting ability. He has some playmaking ability. And so like it was all a matter of putting this all together. And it seems like he's getting there. Because there's still occasionally a play that is he doesn't make the right play. Like he tries to force something that's not there. He tries to force something spectacular rather than going with something maybe a little safer. But his defense in particular has been a lot more consistent than it has been in the past. And even I think to start the season when he was not playing, he wasn't playing well at the beginning of the season. And there was questions about whether he was going to make it into the lineup, and then I think the Grimes injury really paved the way for him, because I think it was maybe the preseason he just looked absolutely awful at every aspect of the game. So now I think it's kind of a nice turnaround for him, and it shows that other players like I don't know maybe RJ Barrett can improve throughout the year and get back on track.
Yeah, BBD, I want to hear your thoughts on Cam, but just real quick. First, one huge issue I had with Cam was his shot selection in years past. He whether that was taking long twos. I'm seeing when he was in Atlanta last year, he took 13% of his shots from long two, which is in the 83rd percentile among forwards. Like he took a lot of long twos in Atlanta. This year, he's taking 5% of his shots from long two. That's in the 32nd percentile. He's taking nearly half of his shots at the rim. And that's awesome because he's shooting above average at the rim percentage wise. And it's the shot selection thing, he's taken all threes and shots at the rim. I know I was just kind of, hating on Barrett for not having that mid-range game, but look, Cam Reddish isn't having the problems finishing to the degree that RJ has. You know what I mean? Like if you can get to the rim and finish at this clip, you do it, So that's been really impressive for me.
Yeah. I mean, Cam has been, one of the brightest spots on the team, probably second to just Brunson looks like what we paid for. The biggest positive would probably be Cam Reddish is like a real player and he has some value, and there's just like a grace to his game when he's right that like he has the ability to make like basketball look easy that not everybody on our team has. Like RJ, even at his best, I hate to pile on, just like it never looks incredibly simple. And Cam has a little bit of that to him. I'm very curious because Cam had started his last 8 games before this injury, just where it all shakes out as far as starting lineup and all that. Whenever he is ready to return, just because he had been playing well and was starting, but it also looks like Grimes is doing everything we need from him. If that continues, it'll be an interesting conversation when that comes. But
yeah, man, the two of them together in a lineup, those are two very good defensive wings. Like Quentin Grimes is probably more fundamentally sound, but if you're talking about combining upside with that length and the motor, those two guys on the wing are going to be a real problem for opponents. And so I'm excited to see them play together when it finally happens. One note I want to make on the rotation stuff. We had 3 centers play in this game against Phoenix today. Mitchell Robinson returned from injury, so he played just under 17 minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein started and played just over 15 minutes. And then Jericho Sims played 16 minutes himself. I do want to just shout out Jericho Sims. We haven't talked about him yet. He was awesome in Mitch's absence. I think he was really strong. He's got this next level athleticism that we talked about, but he's also just been a real presence defensively, very active. Another guy with a great motor and that athleticism. He grabs those rebounds at their apex, higher than just about anybody I can think of. It's really incredible. And so I just wanted to give Jericho Sims a little love because I'm curious to see what his role is going to be once Mitch Rob is back kind of at full capacity. And I think that's going to be the question going forward because he should be an NBA rotation player, but I don't know if there's going to be room for him.
Yeah, I one thing that I have noticed, just not to be the detractor, is like I feel like without Mitch on the floor, and I'm trying to look up the stats now, but it's taking me a bit. I feel like the Knicks have just been out rebounded tremendously, and I don't know that is all the fault of Hartenstein and Sims, but the fact that it seems to me just by the eye test that they're getting out rebounded without Mitch, like it's concerning. But I agree. Like Sims has been great energy, and the fast twitch muscles have been impressive, and even a couple times he's gotten out on the perimeter and played passable defense on some guards. It's like this is definitely an NBA rotation player.
Definitely. Unfortunately for him, he just clearly is, when healthy, the third best center on this team. It's just how it shakes out. But all the tools are there, and he already is at a level where he should at least be in a rotation, and he has the fun factor. Obviously, he's a highlight pretty much every game he plays any sort of real minutes.
Well, it's tough with Isaiah Hartenstein given how he's been used on this team because, what was kind of advertised to us was how great of a passer he was. And just looking at his role in Cleveland last year, he was assisting on 19% of his team's assists. That was in the 92nd percentile for bigs. This year it's below 5%. Like he's not playmaking at all for teammates. So like that's a skill set he very much has that we need. We need someone to create shots for guys. And it's tough because he doesn't have the athleticism that a Sims or a Robinson does, or the length. So we do get killed when he's out there on the glass, and he doesn't protect the rim as well as these other guys. He doesn't have the length or the tools for it. So it's like, is Hartenstein really being used properly is my question, because I think that if he's not going to be giving us the offensive benefits, if he's just going to be like screening and diving just like Sims and Mitch do, then I don't think he really, needs to be out there as much, frankly.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. Just because I think that Hartenstein, they brought him in to be a different look, and specifically potentially, the passing and a little bit more shooting than you'd have. But the fact is that Tibbs plays the same way, and he likes rim running big men, and Hartenstein, that's not his game. So like because like historically, Noel, when he was playing, was just very much like a much worse version of Mitch, where all he did was protect the rim and he couldn't do anything other than dunk the ball. Hartenstein is not that way. And Sims is a little more just like a kind of more Mitch type of player. So like it's an interesting point about who ends up shaking out of this lineup, depending on what Tibbs wants to do.
It's a great point, Kenny, that Hartenstein would ideally give more diversity to this offense, that we have different looks to go to against different defenses. And, Hartenstein, like he's got that mid-range game to him. And I think the point I've seen made on Twitter has been like Tibbs has had very good passing bigs before. Joakim Noah was not used in this rim diving role, right? Like Hartenstein can be used in a similar way where he's creating from the elbows and guys are cutting off of him. And, we've even saw that in like preseason. We saw a little bit of that towards the beginning of the season, and it just hasn't been a focus of this offense. It's been kind of a bummer because it creates this kind of homogenous offense that I really struggled on that word, but that's sort of, that's kind of where we're at. And it stagnates the offense, and it leads to some really, really ugly possessions.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just something I want to look out for, is to see if like Hartenstein's role might change, and if not, then like he's not going to be as good as Sims or Mitch Rob at the things that he's being asked to do. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, and definitely something that I will now be watching for, because it's something I didn't think about until we had this conversation. So good job, Tom.
Well, I think that's kind of all I had to to discuss about the week that was. Want to take a quick look at the upcoming games and then get into what else is on?
Please.
I can't wait to get to what else is on.
All right. So this week we will be wrapping up the road trip against the Oklahoma City Thunder on Monday. That's a team that we gave up 145 points to in regulation just a week ago. I don't expect that to happen again. Then we've got a few days off for Thanksgiving. The next game isn't until Friday. So between Monday and Friday, there's going to be several days off. That'll be nice for RJ, I think, to clear his head. He's going to go home. He's going to be able to watch some tape and kind of distance himself a little bit. I'm hoping for an RJ bounce back game on Friday against the Portland Trailblazers at MSG. And then Sunday, 6 p.m. game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis, we played in the opener, the season opener, lost in overtime. So those are always fun games against the Grizzlies. They're always competitive. So I'm excited for that one too. BBD, I'll start with you. What are you thinking for a record this week?
Well, I don't see a loss with this Knicks team. No, I do think this OKC game going into a lengthy break after it'll be. I think they will be very motivated to win that one. We'll see if they actually win. It's very important they don't get embarrassed. So I'm hoping that one's a dub.
Important.
They can ride that for a few days. And Portland, what have they been up to? What's their team?
Portland's having a very good season.
Yeah, they're 10-6 right now, but they're 5-5 in their last 10. So they did start pretty hot. But yeah, just 500 in their last 10. They're actually 6-2 on the road. So they've been better on the road than at home. So that's something to think about when teams come to MSG pretty fired up. So that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, expect a big Dame game that day.
Big Dame game. I want to say real quick on the OKC Thunder thing, like SGA was a real matchup problem in that first one, but I like Quentin Grimes against him. Like if Grimes will still be in the rotation, obviously. And so I do like that matchup a little bit better. He's not going to stop SGA, but just to slow him down a bit because RJ was not the answer. And I really like Quentin Grimes there. So I think that's one thing to note for that one. I'm with you that the Trailblazers game might be a little dicey, but so did you give it a record, BBD?
3-0. Knicks are the best. I am seeing the Blazers injury report. Lillard looks like he will be missing a game or two to a right calf strain, which means that will probably be his return back from an injury. So whatever the Damian Lillard points over under is on DraftKings, you should probably pick the over. He's coming back from an injury at the Garden.
It's good betting tips from Big Baby David. I'm gonna go. I always want to go optimistic, and I feel like the real answer here is 1-3, or 1-2. But as the optimist that I always try to be, I'll go 2-1. You can steal one of those. You got to beat OKC and then steal one of those other ones.
You're at home for the others,
right? After some R&R, and like Tom said, I think the Memphis games are always interesting. I think RJ Barrett in particular gets hyped up for those. So after some time to clear his head, I think that might be his opportunity to kind of break out because Ja Morant drafted number 2, RJ Barrett drafted number 3 in the same draft. So they have a little bit of a history, and I hoping that lights a fire under RJ and gets him back on track.
I like this as a lane to wake him up.
I think that 1-2 is probably the most likely, but I've been a little pessimistic. And I mean, look, this is a 500 team pretty much. The team is 8-9 at this point. 2-1 would bring us right back to 500. That's fair and likely. So let's go optimistic. We'll go 2-1 as a podcast. That's the prediction. We were right last week. And we'll probably be right this week too.
Always right.
Always right.
If not, BBD will edit this entire conversation.
No, pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
All right. So should we go to America's favorite sub podcast? What else is on?
We should.
I'd love it.
Who wants to start?
We haven't heard from BBD in a while. BBD,
Yeah.
what else is on? When you're not watching the Knicks, what are you popping on?
Tom, you'll really appreciate this. I just finished a show this weekend. It's called a Friend of the Family. It's about a pedophile that abducts a child, and then they eventually return. It's a true story. There's a documentary about it as well. This is a
The dramatized version.
dramatized version. And then they bring her home, and then about 2 years later he does abduct her again. True story. I thought you'd really like it.
Well, I do like that. So it stars Jake Lacey. I see.
He's really good. He's the pedophile, and he looks a little like you.
That is high praise for me to look like Jake Lacey. Kenney, for your reference, that's the spoiled guy from season 1 of White Lotus.
Okay.
New Jim.
Oh yeah, New Jim. Was that
New
what
Jim.
I was going to call him? BBD, did you go to Scranton recently? I saw some pictures while we're
Did
on.
I go to Scranton? I technically drove by this weekend on the way to my grandma's, but I don't think I posted something. And
did I
You
not
did some
see?
office pictures.
I went to an office the office experience pop-up thing in DC.
Okay, that was
a week
DC.
ago.
Never mind.
Is in DC.
Sorry to get us off track.
No, it's all good. It was cool. And the other things I was watching, girlfriend and I just finished Only Murders in the Building. She hadn't seen it yet. I had.
What'd you think?
She liked it.
She watched both seasons?
Yeah, we watched both over the 2 weeks before I watched this show. I guess I was watching it at the same time.
So wait, Beebs, just real quick, do you recommend A Friend of the Family? I see it's on Peacock.
It was a good watch. It's on Peacock. My first time watching a show on Peacock.
Never done that.
Yeah, it's my first time going over there, but I know my parents had an account, so I sauced the login, went over there. It's a wild story. I mean, it's real, and there's documentaries and stuff. So I don't think spoilers are a thing, but if you want, I can tell you, this guy crazy, obviously, but he also manipulates the other set of parents. So he in the period in between abductions bangs the other mom, the mom of the girl he abducted.
That is
crazy.
a spoiler.
Yeah, banged her. 2 years before the first abduction, he gets the dad to do him a little favor in the car. If you catch my drift.
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know.
This is
so
wild
it's a wild story, and it's all out there. I don't think spoilers exist because it's just a real story. But I gave everybody chances to skip it, besides you guys in here. And I knew all that going in. It was fun. What are you
Friend
guys
of the
watching?
Family, Only Murders in the Building. Kenney, what else has been on for you?
That was BBD coming in hot on his first What Else Is On, and I'm here for it. I tend to watch
Tom would like
less,
it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good show.
I tend to watch less serious stuff than that. Although occasionally I'll throw something in. I might watch just a movie that's a little more serious. I don't know if I'm into a full series on that. But for me, there's a lot going on. I feel like there's more stuff that I want to watch than I am actively watching. This past week, not a lot going on. I think it was mostly basketball, both of the professional and the college type. Villanova had a tough week, but I think that is largely due to them missing their two best players. UConn having a good week, both men and women. The women today, tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Monday, or yesterday, if you're listening to this on Monday, just had a very big win against number 10 North Carolina State. So that's what I've been watching, but I have a lot on the list, and that includes World Cup started today. U.S. first game on Monday. That's going to be big on my mind. I mentioned last week 1899. I didn't get a chance to get into that yet, but that's from the creators of Dark. So if you watch Dark, that was a very complicated and mind-blowing show that you really need to get into. So if that's not your style it's not a show you can casually watch. But I'd highly recommend that. And if you haven't seen Dark, go back and watch Dark, and you'll need a notepad to get through that. And
Best
then
kind of TV. You need to know.
it's I love it though. Like I don't think you were a big Dark fan, Tom, but like me and Greg loved it, and I've talked to a couple other people who were very high on it. And then the last thing that I saw that I've added to my list, although not until after the Thanksgiving holiday, is that do you guys know a new Christmas Story movie is now on HBO Max?
I saw some ads for it. Yeah.
Unaware of that, but the main character, all grown up, same guy, and no idea what it's about, but I assume it's going to be interesting. So I'll plan to check that out shortly after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I imagine like it's about his kid, probably, right? I don't know. We'll see. The original was such a classic, BBD. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a classic.
So one
It's
other
known.
thing that I will have you seen it, BBD?
I haven't seen it. Jewish.
You still
Yeah.
It's a good show though. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It was a staple in my household growing up. But
and it's on all the time. Like I think
It's one of those
24 hours.
movies you
free-
just know about.
Freeform plays it for 24 hours on Christmas. Is that right? Something like
yeah,
that.
it used to be like TBS, but now everything's
Maybe it is.
streaming. So
But one other thing I want to add before, and I want to ask you, Tom, what else is on for you. But while I was looking at that, I saw that there was apparently a second Christmas Story, like more during that time that I had no idea about. So this is the second sequel to A Christmas Story, but maybe I'll watch the first one. I don't know. So Tom, sorry for cutting into your time, but what else is on for you?
oh, we got all the time in the world. So I've continued to watch White Lotus season 2. All caught up there. I'm still enjoying it. I don't know if either of you guys have watched it yet.
I haven't busted out season 2. I really liked season 1.
I did too, and
I might try to
yeah,
catch
I
up
think-
now.
Yeah, I've enjoyed season 2. I've been texting with Jake about it though, and Greg as well. Greg likes it, like me. Jake is out. Jake's not digging it. I don't agree with his qualms with it though. It's still a fun hang. We're in Sicily instead of Hawaii. Yeah, the characters I'd say are like a little bit more, maybe down to earth. In that first season, some of those characters were pretty over the top, and yeah, I think that some of the characters are a little bit more grounded this season, but I've still had a good time with it. Aubrey Plaza is delightful, and yeah, it's been a good show. And then Rose and my wife and I watched a movie for the first time in months. We watched Confess Fletch, starring John Hamm. Have you guys heard of this movie or seen it?
I heard of John Hamm. Does that help?
John Hamm.
So
Large
it's
penis.
based off. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Chevy Chase movie Fletch from the 80s, but that was like a popular 80s movie. That's based on a book, and so they readapted this book for this movie, Confess Fletch. John Hamm in the Chevy Chase role. He's super charming and very fun. He's a good actor. I enjoyed it. It's like a not almost a whodunit, but like a crime comedy thriller sort of thing. And it was just a good movie overall. I hadn't really watched a movie in a long time, and this was I saw Dog. I remember I talked about Dog on here a little while back and really didn't enjoy that. This was much better than Dog. That's my review.
Good notes. Good notes, Tom. I think after talking to you and Greg enough about White Lotus, I have to step up and start watching season 2. Then we can talk about it in depth, like we used to about Only Murders in the Building when that was on, just full episode reviews.
All right. Well, I think that's all for this week. We appreciate y'all listening, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, rate and review 5 stars. We're on YouTube. BBD, we're on YouTube, right?
We're on the tube.
We're on YouTube. You could be watching this on YouTube if you wanted to. You could see our faces. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at Talkin Knicks, on Twitter for as long as that's a thing, on Talkin Knicks at Talkin Knicks. And yeah, we've got a lot of content going out. We've really stepped it up to start this season. So good stuff, guys. We're on our A game, and we'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, let's go Knicks.
Let's do it.